Good morning and welcome to our WREA Wisconsin Wednesdays. We're talking about protecting your nest egg today. My name is John Green with Association Member Benefits Advisors. I'm joined by my co-host, MJ Woodall, your Executive Director, Diane, and Annalise. And we're going to talk about some things that are pretty important today, but I want to take care of some housekeeping details first before we get started. All participants are in a listen-only mode, and that means if you've got a question or a comment, feel free to drop it into chat or in the Q&A, and we can respond to you individually. Or if it's something that applies to the whole group, we can stop and answer that question as well. We do record every one of these sessions. We put them out on the WREA website, and Diane will talk about that in just a moment. But really, we want to keep it there as a log in case you joined us late, in case you want to share this with a spouse or with your kids, something like that. You can do that as well. Usually it gets out there first of next week is when that will be available to post out on the website. So we thank you for joining. You'll also notice this QR code down here in the bottom. We're going to talk about this at the end, but if you'll have your smartphone handy, we'll walk you through the process of how to use that QR code and what it looks like if you do that as well. So let's go ahead and jump in. And speaking of road warriors and storm chasers and all that, MJ and I got to spend the last week with Diane and Annalise down in Texas, where we hosted all of the executive directors and key members of their staff and presidents of the association at what we call our semi-annual roundup. Every 2 years we have this, and it's a great chance for WREA staff, president, to meet other peers across the country. So Diane, you want to tell us a little bit what's going on up there? Because Diane shared from the stage to her peers all about this membership blitz that you just undertook last month. So Diane, tell me what you found. Tell the group
Thanks,
what
John.
you found.
Thanks, John. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome. As John said, yes, we just went through a 3-week real push for membership in WREA, and working with MJ also at AMBA helped us. But what we did is we put a plan together to work with our chapters to really go after and recruit the either lapsed members or prospective members or their friends to join WREA, and why it's important to join us as an organization, because we are the ones that protect your pension. And as you can see in the bottom, the tagline that we said was, the cost of membership in WREA is really a small investment in your largest asset, which is your retirement. And it's a secure retirement. We do have the #1 pension in the country, so we're doing very well. We did very well, I think, with the Blitz. We are 80 plus new members right now and still counting. And it's the first time we've ever done this, which is really, it was a big task for us, but we had great cooperation from everybody, and the enthusiasm, the momentum was there to really go out and work together to reach additional members for us. And so we are evaluating right now what we need to change. We will probably be doing another one in the spring. Membership is a continual process for us, but we really want to do that extra push at special times of the year. So we're right now going through the evaluation phase and then figuring out what we need to change to do it even better next time. And as John said, yes, I did share this with at AMBA, and to my knowledge, nobody else in the country is doing this on a level of, like our association. So I felt pretty proud about that we did accomplish, what we did. The other thing I want to mention to everybody is check out our website at www.wrea.net. and go to the events tab at the top, and you can see all of the events that we have here planned at WREA, from these Wisconsin webinars to other webinars, to our meeting schedules, to I do a monthly fireside chat, to everything that we have offered. And you can register for anything that you want in advance, so we know who's attending. And it isn't just for members. It can be for anyone who wants to check us out, learn about WREA and what we do here. So go to that website, check it out, see if there's something that you are interested in, and then hopefully you'll join us. And also I want to wish everybody, so I don't forget later, a very happy Thanksgiving coming up in a couple of weeks, and hope you stay safe, spend time with your families, and really enjoy the time with them. So John, thank you. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Diane. It was a privilege of having you share to the group, and I hope that some of your successes will rub off on others. But you should be proud, WREA members, of what you're doing to continue to grow your membership, and really to grow protecting your pension. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Again, my name is John Green. I work with Association Member Benefits Advisors. I live a little bit north of Houston with my wife, who is a second grade teacher. I spend most of my career in the classroom helping educators understand what retirement years are going to look like after they retire. So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to spend time with you today. And I want to introduce my co-host to you. MJ Woodall is our district manager up in Wisconsin. And MJ, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your family and your furry family as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. So as John shared, that's my family up there. My two sons, after graduating from college, both decided to join alongside what I do. And so we get to work alongside each other and help protect everybody, excuse me, with benefits. And of course, I got a frog in my throat right now, sorry, with benefits and helping you with the different discount programs that we have. I do apologize. I want to also share the little furry guy down there. He is about 2.5 years young right now, and he's quite active, but that is our new addition, as some people call it a pandemic puppy. Some people call it a COVID puppy, but that is our little furry friend, Bucky. And the first picture there on the left is when we first got him at 8 weeks old. And then the picture on the right is when he was 2 years at his gotcha date. I want to share something else. Diane talked about the pension in that the cost of membership, it's a small investment that you make to protect your largest asset, right? And I had the privilege of listening in on a conversation that my son, John, who is in the picture that you see there, he's the one that's in the pink short sleeve buttoned up top. He was on the phone with somebody this weekend, and it was a husband and wife that both worked in education. And I was so so excited about what this lady said that I called Diane, as Diane and Annalise were on their way driving back. Number one, I wanted to check and see how they were doing on their drive. Number two, I wanted to share with her what this lady said. And her exact words were, and I heard her saying this in my office, that she thanks WREA every single day for protecting their pension. And I thought that was so telling, coming directly from one of our members. So I just wanted to share that because it is a big thing that WREA does. And we're very fortunate to have WREA, and the pension being number one in the country is outstanding. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, John.
Thank you, MJ. Appreciate that. You know, we're talking about pension. We just wrapped up election, or we think we've wrapped up election yesterday. And this is now at the point to where associations across the country, just like WREA, really have to go in and start continue to make either the new representatives or the old representatives familiar with the pension system. And if you want to remain number one, WREA is there to support and be your pension watchdog, to help preserve those health benefits, those things that you worked so hard for when you were taking care of our children. That's what WREA does on your behalf. And again, as MJ mentioned, as Diane mentioned, it is such a small investment to protect your biggest asset, which is an income stream that you can't outlive. And that's what WREA and the members do. So that's why it's important, even after the election, to really start working whenever the legislature start meeting next year. WREA, just as we proved during the Blitz time, connects us back to the local retirees in the community. Found a lot of different people that weren't familiar with WREA, got back involved with WREA. So it's a great opportunity to do that. And then partner up with AMBA to provide exclusive discounts, benefits, fun stuff as well that are out there. And some of those benefits really can fill gaps that you don't have or didn't take with you when you left the schoolhouse. They're portable for whatever reason you leave the state. Just about the first time it snows, we start to see a lot of Midwestern plates down here in Texas. People are coming down snowbirding. These benefits are portable wherever you take them across the country. You can extend these benefits to your parents, to your children if they've aged out of any benefits that you have. And some of our younger retirees, they may have retired from the schoolhouse, but they're still working part-time jobs or other jobs. And the proper planning with family members can prevent you from having to take additional time off your career to take care of a loved one. So we're going to talk about today just this whole concept of protecting your nest egg. If you look at the stock market, if you're like me, I open up my phone real quickly, then I see red, I close it. I don't even look at the numbers out there. And so we're going to talk about today what makes up your nest egg. And then we're going to look at a USA Today article from a few years ago that talked about the 5 biggest threats to your nest egg and how you can protect them against that, protect your nest egg against those threats, give you peace of mind, take advantage of the endorsed options that you have through WREA and AMBA. But right now, let's go ahead and do a quick poll. We haven't done one of these polls in a while, so at least if I can get this to pull up here. I'm going to launch this poll, and this will help MJ and I a little bit today. When it comes to your nest egg savings, my biggest concern or my biggest fear is inflation, stock market gyrations, outliving my savings, or some type of medical expense. So if you'll take a few seconds and answer that poll, we've got about 24 folks on the call, and we'll wait just a few minutes here. And we're about halfway there. Lots of good movement out there. Thank you for participating. This helps MJ and I understand, you know, what's on your mind, what you're looking for, and all that as well. Okay, we'll just close it just a few seconds. 3, 2, 1, and we'll share this poll. So it's a pretty good mix across the board. Most people are concerned about medical expenses, probably, you know, cracking into their nest egg, or the stock market up and down, that type of thing. We've got some folks that think about inflation or outliving their savings. The good news, as Diane mentioned in Wisconsin, the inflation aspect and the outliving your savings with your pension plan is really, really good. You don't have to worry about that as much with the pension aspect of it. There are other states, including my home state of Texas, to where inflation, they haven't had a COLA in almost 20 years. It doesn't look like we may get one. Those kind of things do eat at their mindset there. So again, thank you for sharing that. And we'll jump in and just kind of talk a little bit about each of those as we go through here, because there are 3 components. When you think about your retirement income, think of it as a 3-legged stool. The first leg is your pension. And again, as Diane mentioned, you got the best pension in the state, that or in the country. That didn't happen by accident. That happened because people before you paid it forward to you. You can pay it forward to those active educators now to make sure that your pension performs the way that you want it to. Second is Social Security. And there are some increases in Social Security coming up next year, which all tie into inflation, but that's another one there. And then this third leg is other savings. And so we're going to talk about that today and kind of define what makes up your nest egg. We're not talking about your active pension, spouse's Social Security money. We're not even talking about your mattress money, that money that you've got, you know, set aside for a rainy day, your emergency fund, however you want to call that. That's not a nest egg that we're talking about. And even structured settlements, if you had some type of insurance claim that you are getting paid out over a period of years, that's not your nest egg. We're talking about 403Bs, 401k plans, any type of IRAs or cash balance pension plans that you may have, anything that you may have just saved up in a CD or general savings that's sitting there, not an emergency fund, but just general savings in a CD there, or any type of inheritance, something like that. That's what we're talking about in a retirement nest egg. That's a very important component of your retirement savings, your nest egg overall, because if something happens to you, you can't call the pension board and say, hey, increase my pension. You can't call Social Security and say, increase my Social Security. You've got to draw from that nest egg, whether it be your emergency savings or from other savings that you've saved up as well. So we're going to walk through here and kind of go through these top 5 threats from an article a few years back in USA Today that are threats to your nest egg: taking care of elderly parents, the death of a spouse without life insurance, boomerang children, a medical crisis, or overexposure to the stock market as you age. So we're going to walk through each one of these, give you a few little background tips behind it, and then show you just briefly what some of the solutions could be. If you've got questions, again, put those into chat, drop them into the Q&A, and we'll be able to get back to you right away. So the number one biggest thing that can scramble your nest egg, and I'm thinking about your nest egg, if you still have parents that are living, like MJ and I, or it could be you are the parents and you've got to worry about your children scrambling their savings as they go through here. Because taking care of elderly parents, unfortunately, over 70% of all care is provided in someone's home by an informal caregiver who receives no compensation. So what that means is my wife, my daughter-in-law, my sister-in-law, or my brother and I having to take off our job and take care of my mom. You know, we're not skilled at it. We don't have the funds to take care of her, something like that. And really, this impacts women much more than men, because women have to, usually the burden falls on them. About $300,000 it costs them in their earning potential by taking care of elderly parents and taking off work. And think about this. MJ and I have worked with a lot of teachers that retired early or left the career early to take care of mom or to take care of a grandmother or an aunt, something like that. And what it did was, not only did it stop their income flow, but it stopped their pension plan from continuing to grow, their vesting years, all the contributions, things like that. So it can have a double whammy on those that have some type of a pension or their ability to save for the future. So just knowing that taking care of elderly parents is probably the number one biggest nest egg wrecker, whether it be your own nest egg or that of your children. There are some solutions out there. If you've joined us before, MJ and I have talked about long-term care, home health care, and recovery care insurance are kind of a hybrid of all of those. Just recently, my brother and I took care of my mother's situation. She's too old to qualify for long-term care at a affordable rate, for lack of a better term, but we were able to get her a plan that would provide for care in her home for at least a year. That would allow my brother and I to get her assets in order. And if we needed to sell the house, do things like that, but we didn't have to do something right away if she had a need. So there are a lot of options that are out there for you. A lot of people will use their personal assets, but as MJ and I will tell you, sometimes finding that first dollar is the hardest, because you're having to tap maybe an IRA and take some tax consequences on that, or trying to spend some money down, or sell an asset that you didn't plan on selling. So again, taking care of elderly parents, there are some solutions out there that can keep your nest egg intact. The other is spouse dying without life insurance. Within 6 months of a spouse dying of life insurance, close to 40% of Americans would feel some type of financial pinch. And that can cause cutbacks in not only in spending, but in lifestyle as well. And having some type of life insurance can prevent a spouse from dipping into their retirement savings to pay for housing, medical, college, bills that popped up that way for kids or grandkids. In certain states that don't have Social Security, this is a Social Security replacement option here as well. And so there are some options out there in terms of final expense whole life that just pay for the last expenses that you have, some guaranteed issue life insurance that if you've got a health issue that you don't have to worry about it, you can still be covered with just a few questions there. And then, as I mentioned, depending upon what state you live in, what your background is, some states, the retired educators do not receive their spouse's Social Security once they pass away. So it can be a replacement for any type of Social Security. Even if you are receiving it and you get some of the payment going forward, this is another way that you can solve that with life insurance. Most of you mentioned medical crisis as one of your biggest concerns, and medical bills are the biggest bankruptcy cause in the United States. And it's like, well, everybody's got Medicare, they've got good health care through the school or retiree care, that kind of stuff like that. The problem that comes around it is so many of the costs surrounding the treatment, the aftercare, things like that, are not covered by either Medicare or major medical plans. And when it comes to cancer, it's usually 60% is not covered by Medicare or insurance. So this 60% usually finds itself in the way of transportation and lodging for treatments. I live in Houston, and often when I'm flying back home, I meet people that are flying down to our medical centers, people that go from Wisconsin up to the Mayo Clinic, things like that. There's different places, and the cost to travel, or the cost to have someone take off time to take you, that type of thing, can be quite expensive. And then Medicare is really, and I'm going to use a very technical term, squirrely, about how they pay for what I would consider comfort items: anti-nausea medication, prosthesis, wigs, comfort items, semi-private rooms, things of that nature. Medicare doesn't pay for a lot of those things. And so you get that situation. And then we find a lot of people who go into a Medicare Advantage plan, they may not realize that there are sizable deductibles, and balance billing can really hit them if they're referred to somebody outside their network, because that can be a challenge. Oftentimes in a Medicare Advantage plan, if you stay in the network, your expenses are capped at a certain $1,000 mark, out-of-pocket amount that you have. But if your doctor refers you to a specialist outside the network, or somewhere along the way, some of your readings, your scans are read by somebody outside the network, that creates an out of a network bill. Balance billing can really be a surprise that way. And then for those of you who are younger maybe and have a chronic condition, sometimes that can hinder your earning potential. So that medical crisis, even with Medicare, can be a really nest egg scrambler. And there are some solutions in regards to cancer, heart attack, and stroke plans that can just pay you a lump sum that would cover any out-of-pocket expenses that you would be out of for treatment if you're in a Medicare Advantage plan, or would give you the ability to say, hey, I want to travel and get this best treatment that may be farther away from my home, but I know I can get healed quicker, that type of thing. We talked about the recovery care plans. There are some accident plans for slip and falls. And then there's also the MASA membership. If you're familiar with MASA, if you've received any of our mailings, the MASA membership is the air and ground ambulance anywhere in the world, but mostly around your house, that would pay for any uncovered bill that you would have for emergency transportation. No questions asked, takes care of it. There's some benefits for your grandchildren if you're traveling with your grandchildren, things of that nature, all across the country. Many more members are starting to travel across the world again, and there's worldwide coverage as well that goes along with that. But the surprising thing is locally, an ambulance ride of 4 or 5 miles could still be multiple thousands of dollars. And Medicare can come back and say, well, you could have taken an Uber, or you could have had a neighbor drive you. You didn't need to take an ambulance and not pay for anything. And then most Medicare or medical ambulance providers, emergency medical transportation providers, they don't participate in any network. So even if Medicare does pay, then they only pay 20%. So those are some things that can wreck your nest egg, but we do have some solutions for you on that. Number 4 is a situation that scares me to death with 3 of my children now living outside the household, is boomerang children. More, especially during time of COVID, more households have adult children living with them than ever before. And for fully retired individuals, 52% of boomer households with children who don't live with them are fully retired. But on the other hand, if they have children with living with them who are fully retired, only 21% are fully retired. So again, having children move back into your house, things you weren't expecting, expenses that go up with that can mess with your nest egg as well. And the only solution I have is lock that door. You know, just change the locks, change the keys. I love my children. When they come home for spring break or summer break, something like that, it just cramps my lifestyle. I love them to death. I love to go visit them. I love for them to be around. I love to travel with them. But, you know, if you have kids come home, we're thinking about this around Thanksgiving and Christmas and all that, it just kind of gets in your way a little bit. Lock that door or make them promise to become your caregiver forever. And we had a couple of retired educators in Oklahoma when I was doing this webinar for them, and they said, here's what I've done. We have a whole list. If they want to move back in, they have all this checklist that they have to do. And these are how they have to contribute to the bills, things like that. Boomerang children, as much as we love them, can really mess with your nest egg. If you've got any solutions to that, share that with us. We'd appreciate passing that along as well. And the 5th biggest threat to your nest egg is overexposure to the stock market. And many of you talked about in the survey, gyrations in the stock market. Because if you retire and take a hit in the stock market, depending upon the time, you may not have the time to make it back up. And so you've saved up all your career in your 403B plan, your spouse in a 401k plan, IRA, whatever it is, and you retire. Well, what if you retired in October of 2008? Could you afford a 48% drop in your retirement nest egg? At that point, you had saved up for years, and all of a sudden, almost 50% of your savings were gone in just a period of a few weeks. And so as we get older, having a plan to protect that money is so important. But you can't just throw it into a CD or a savings account because the interest rates aren't there. And so sometimes people will tell MJ and I, well, I'll just write it out because it came back from 2007. Yes, it did. It came back from 2007, 2008. But look at this chart. This chart over here, around 589 points, was right before the Great Depression. This is the S&P 500. This is the 500 largest companies in the nation, pretty much a bellwether for stocks overall. So you've got here 580 something points, drops way down here. If you went across, that's in 1929. If you went across, it's around 1956. So you're talking 37 years or 27 years to make that back up. A lot of us don't have that opportunity. Then you go over here in the 60s, and it took all the way from the highs in the 60s, a little less than 1,000, to get back up to that point somewhere in the 80s. So again, 20, 30-year gaps in there. We don't always have the time to make that back up. And while, yes, this 2007 time period looked good, we all know that COVID last year, or a couple of years ago, we lost 37% of value just in a few short weeks. So, I mean, I look at the stock market, it's been up, it's been down. This is a shot that I took from my phone back in January. I look at it now, these indices are about the same, some a little lower, that type of thing. You never know what's going to take in there and when's going to happen. And MJ and I like to share this kind of analogy. We've been at a pretty good run at the blackjack table the last several years. And when I start losing at a blackjack table or video poker, my tendency is I'm going to keep betting more to try to make it back up. When really what I should do is take my winnings off the table, go to bed that night with at least a little bit more of money than I started with. And so we're kind of in that situation right now. We don't know what's going on. We don't know what the CD rates are going to do, the savings rates. We know that inflation continues to go up. Gas prices continue to go up. Interest rates are a little bit higher right now, but they're not really high enough to make up for inflation for sure and anything we could have lost in the past. So what's your options out there? A potential option would be a tax-deferred asset protection plan. It is endorsed by WREA. You can never run out of income. So it works similar to a pension plan in that regard. You never run out of income. And it gives you control over some of your money that you don't have to worry about whether the stock market goes up and down. As we talked about in the survey, some of us have concerns about outliving our money. Only 20% of us worry about dying, but close to 60% of us worry about running out of money in retirement. That's the great thing about having your pension, is that you don't have to worry about that part of your three-legged stool. But what about those other savings that you've got in there? And so a tax-deferred asset protection plan gives you that lifetime income, just like your pension, but it gives you access to competitive returns, potential upside when the stock market does go up. But if it goes down, you don't lose any money. So you don't have a stock market risk out there. It allows you to take advantage of growth, but not losses, especially in your retirement years. The older we get, the less risky we need to be with our money. We don't want to have just all of a sudden something happen, a war break out somewhere, and the stock market drops again. You want to protect that out there. And why I like this plan that's endorsed by WREA, there's no underwriting, so it doesn't matter your health conditions there. You can use it for qualified or non-qualified money, tax qualified money or non-tax qualified money, like your IRAs for qualified, or just CDs and savings for your non-qualified money. You can use or put your money different places in different ways that you want to use it. It gives you liquidity if you need it, meaning that if you have an issue, you can take a certain amount of the money out of there. The thing I love about it is it has long-term care benefits built inside of it. And so MJ, I'd like you to share just for a moment kind of about why you have this type of plan before we move forward.
Absolutely, John. So I have this plan, and I wouldn't be without it. And my reasonings why are, I want to make sure that I can enjoy my retirement as, I get into those years down the road. I do have one of our, well, not one, I have several of our other plans too. And one of them is a recovery care, which is our short-term care plan. I have that as my first line of defense if something happens to me and I need care in the home or in a facility. But then I can also fall back onto this plan. So if something happens and I need extra money, I can tap into the monies that are here to help offset those costs down the road. So what I love about this plan is I can use it for income. I can use it for my own personal care if that's what's needed. And then guess what? I also can do exactly what I'd want to do with any of that leftover, is make sure that it goes to those beneficiaries when, something happens to me. I want to make sure it's protected. We always talk about the rule of 100. And that rule of 100 is if you take your age and subtract it from 100, whatever that remaining number is what we would, not just us, but what they say not to spend or not to have more than that playing in the market, right? So if somebody is 70 years young and you subtract that from 100, that means 30% or less is what you'd probably want to have in the market, because of what John talked about on a previous slide. And, it goes back to how much time do you have to make that up if something happens? And we've all seen what's happened over the last couple of years. I don't have to worry about my money because it's safe. It's always either going to go up or it's going to stay wherever it last was at. Just like an escalator goes up, as that up escalator is going up, if that escalator ever stops, it stays exactly where it was last at until it starts going back up again. And that's what's awesome about this plan.
Great. And one of the reasons that I have the plan is my father, if you've been on any of the long-term care webinars, he passed away from vascular dementia after spending about 2 years in a nursing home. It makes it difficult for me to qualify for long-term care based on family history. The long-term care benefits in there give me peace of mind that if something happens before I start to get an income stream, I can tap that money as much as I need to for my long-term care. And if I'm already starting an income stream and I do need to go to a nursing home, it can double my payments out of there. So it gives me the best of both worlds, knowing I've got peace of mind money set aside for long-term care if I need it. But if I don't need it, like MJ said, I can use it for my own income or I can pass it on to beneficiaries. So it gives me the best of all worlds in that regard. So because we've got to really pay attention, we've got to prepare for a lot more years of living. I mean, we've seen the impact of inflation, but the older we get, studies show that we're going to get even older. Once you reach age 65, chances are that you're going to reach age 90 are pretty high. And so there's a lot of life changes, a lot of health issues can go on in there. And having a plan in place that sees you through all that time period gives you much greater peace of mind that you don't have to worry about it and you can protect yourself as you go forward. So are there any questions out there? If you've got a question, feel free to put it into chat, put it into Q&A, or as I mentioned, grab your smartphone, open up your camera feature on your smartphone and hover over that QR code, just like we do in restaurants today. A little form will pop up. I'm going to walk you through that in just a moment, and I'll show you what it looks like, and you can select what information you'd like to talk about in there, and MJ and her team will get back to you as quickly as possible. If you're on a tablet or you're on your phone and you can't access that, you can always email me at john.green@amba.info. I'll come back to this QR code in just a moment, but we want to show you what it looks like. So when you hover over that QR code with your camera, don't take a picture of it, just hover over it. That little form here, this little button will pop up. You hit your finger on it, and this form will pop up where you can just go down and select anything that you want to talk about. You can put your association in there and your information. Hit submit. It will come back to MJ and her team. And MJ, if one of these comes back to you, what do you do when you contact someone that's requested information?
Yes, what we would do, either myself or a member of my team would reach out to you. We would definitely leave a message. If for some reason we don't reach you personally, we would leave a message stating that we are with AMBA, that we are calling on behalf of your Wisconsin Retired Educator Association member benefits, and calling with respect to the return card that we got, basically your request to give us a call or to connect on these particular things. Definitely we'd leave our name and number so that you could call us back. So you don't have to worry. I know a lot of times people worry about being scammed or who is this number calling from and whatnot. And I've got individuals around the state of Wisconsin, so they could be calling from a 414, a 262. I don't know if I have anybody with 608 phone number right now, but numbers kind of move around, but they could call from any of those area codes. And again, we're just here to help you and answer any of those questions that you might have on this.
Great. Thanks, MJ. We did have a question from Deborah. She asked, can I go through the qualified, non-qualified situation again? Okay, so when I'm talking about qualified money versus non-qualified money, I'm talking about money that was taxed at the time you put it into savings, or not taxed. So think about if you have a 403B that you had it as an active educator, you were putting money into that pre-tax. That's a qualified plan. An IRA is a qualified plan. That's qualified monies that have not been taxed yet. They would only be taxed when you take it out for your use. Now, with the tax deferred plan that we talked about, you can take that or a portion of that and roll it over without any taxes going in at the beginning. So you don't have to worry about any tax implications. It won't change any of your income status for tax filing, anything of that nature, or have to pay any penalties. But you can do it that way. Some people do all of it. Some will just do a portion of it that way. Non-qualified money is money that you've already paid a tax on. So think about CDs, savings accounts, any type of inheritance that you received from somebody that was non-qualified money came to you that way. Or it could be like a Roth IRA that the taxes were already paid on it before you put it into that situation. And again, the same situation works. You can take a portion or all of that and put it in without any type of tax consequences going forward. And the earnings that you earn on it grow tax-free until it's time to take it out in that situation. Okay. Renee asked, my husband put his 401k money in this account? Renee, absolutely. And I know MJ has had some members that their spouses have done that. So you want to share about that, and then you shared some stories beginning of the year about people who waited a month and how that impacted them.
Yes, and actually I will, so to answer the 401k question, I did exactly that. I took my 401k and the pension that I had from where I used to work, and I rolled it into one of these plans. So I've done that. Other people have done that. You absolutely can. And then we've had individuals that have, they looked at it and they were thinking about doing it, and then they decided to wait. And I've had some people that have lost like $15,000 in the process of just a few months when they did something, like when they waited. And if they would have gotten into this plan, they wouldn't have lost anything further. It just would have stayed wherever it was last at. So, it has to be what's right for you and when it's right for you. But I think John talked about it before, and I am a Vegas person myself. I sometimes don't go to bed when I'm winning because I keep thinking, oh, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. And then, and you feel really good when it's great. But then when you lose it or whatever, it's that gut feel. I can only imagine how that would feel if I would have done that with my 401k. I wouldn't want to do something like that. Right. So I personally would recommend, if you're just interested in learning more about this, I'm just going to share what would happen next is what we would do. If you want to learn more about what this would look like for yourself, is we would sit down and I would get one of our financial experts besides John and I, who are I'll call us experts in this area, but we have two individuals within our organization that really focus on this. It's Ron and Dallas are their names. We would get one of them on a call with myself or with a member of my team and yourself, and we would just walk through what it would look like for you. And we can go through a couple of different options. So if that's something that looks of interest to you, great. And if you want to explore it further, then we can take it to that next level.
Great. Thank you, MJ. We had a question about a particular inheritance or amount that you'd put in there, things like that. There are some minimum requirements in terms of the amount of money that you would put in, and MJ can help you walk through that because it may be different on your situation, but there are some minimum, but you can also go back and add additional monies if you do pick up additional inheritance or something like, money that you find, things like that. So I highly encourage you to reach out. We'll show you that QR code in just a moment. Keep those questions coming in the Q&A and chat. We do appreciate those. Just one quick reminder, it's hard to believe we are about 7 weeks away from the end of the year. This is, if COVID was the longest years of our life, this is the fastest year of our life. We have one more webinar coming up on December 7th, and it is all fun stuff, all the new discounts at Passport, all the new holiday travel. If you want to get away to warm weather, if you want to go to cold weather, if you want to just shop and send gifts across the country, you can do that. That's coming up on the 7th. Go check it out. Look for the emails. Look for the information out there on the calendar on WREA.net. And please, 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 if the Blitz told us anything, is the power of an active member telling their friends what WREA does on their behalf makes a world of difference. Don't just assume that because you worked with someone that they know about WREA, please tell them about this. Invite them to one of these webinars. Let them get a taste of what WREA does on their behalf, and then invite them to become a member. We can send out 1,000 letters, 1,000 emails, and not have the power of one person. I think, Diane, if you want to unmute real quick, tell me about the chapter president that got a dozen members just by asking. Tell me about that.
We have one of our chapter presidents, and she's an elderly person, and went out, and just by talking to people, the list that I got from her was tremendous, of people who said they, were going to join. And I mean, it was more than just one time. There were several that just by going back to their, the people who have lapsed or their prospective members and looking at those and, talking to them and have their members check with them, got so many people interested in saying, yeah, I want to belong.
Great. Thank you, Diane. I love hearing those stories. So keep those stories coming. All right. I'm going to leave this open for questions. I'm going to stop recording right now. And what we'll do when we stop recording is that if you've got a question you don't feel comfortable typing in the chat,